She didn't fall asleep in his arms because she trusted him. She fell asleep because her body had finally given up after surviving too many nights alone. Outside, the rain kept falling. Inside, a man who never planned to save anyone held a woman who had stopped believing she could be saved. He thought it was just one night, one act of kindness. But the next morning she looked at him with trembling eyes and called him her husband. And in that single word, two broken lives were about to change forever.
The night she fell asleep in his arms was not romantic in the way stories usually are. It was desperate, heavy, and soaked with exhaustion. Rain pressed against the windows like a warning the world refused to soften, and the power had gone out hours earlier, leaving the small apartment wrapped in shadows and silence. She had collapsed against his chest without asking permission, as if her body had finally surrendered after fighting too long. He remembered the weight of her breath slowing, the way her hands clutched his shirt as if letting go would mean disappearing. In that moment, he had no idea that when morning came, everything he believed about himself, about love, and about broken people would be rewritten forever. If you believe in kindness and second chances, this is the moment to pause for just a second and like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel, because stories like this exist to remind us that even the most ordinary nights can quietly change a life. He was not supposed to be anyone's miracle. He knew that better than anyone. His life had been built on routines designed to keep pain predictable. Wake before sunrise, work long shifts, return to an apartment that echoed too much, sleep lightly, repeat. He had learned that expectations were dangerous things. Once, years ago, he had believed in promises, in forever, in the idea that doing the right thing guaranteed the right ending. Life had corrected him with ruthless precision. Loss had come suddenly, ripping a hole through his plans and leaving him with a quiet grief that never fully healed. Since then, he lived carefully, kindly, but at a distance, as if standing too close to hope might burn. She entered his world the way storms do, without warning and without apology. He first noticed her at the community center where he volunteered on weekends, a place filled with tired faces and quiet resilience. She stood out not because she was loud, but because she seemed to be holding herself together by sheer force of will. Her eyes carried the dull shine of someone who had cried too many times and learned that tears no longer solved anything. She was young, but life had clearly moved too fast for her. There was a stiffness to her posture, like someone bracing for impact even while standing still. They did not speak much at first. Their connection grew in the small human ways that rarely get attention. He noticed she always waited until everyone else had eaten before serving herself. She noticed he fixed broken chairs instead of throwing them away. He learned that she worked nights and slept in places that never felt safe. She learned that he once dreamed of a family and now pretended he never had. Their worlds touched gently, cautiously, like hands reaching out in the dark. The night everything changed began with a phone call he almost ignored. It was late, and he had just finished a shift that left his body aching and his patience thin. When he answered, he recognized her voice immediately, though it sounded smaller, as if fear had taken pieces of it. She said she had nowhere to go. The place she had been staying was no longer an option, and the streets were not kind after midnight. He did not hesitate, even though part of him warned that crossing this line would complicate everything. He told her to come over. She arrived soaked, shaking, and trying very hard not to cry. He gave her dry clothes that didn't quite fit and made tea they barely drank. The apartment felt too small for the weight of what she carried, too quiet for the questions neither of them dared to ask. They sat on the couch, exhaustion pressing down on both of them, until the silence became unbearable. At some point, without discussion or planning, she leaned into him. He froze for a heartbeat, then slowly wrapped his arms around her, not as a man claiming something, but as a human offering warmth. She fell asleep like that, breathing uneven at first, then deep and steady. He stayed awake for hours, listening to the storm outside and the softer one finally settling inside her. He noticed how thin she was, how fragile she felt, and something inside him shifted. Protectiveness, yes, but also grief for all the nights she must have survived without safety, without someone to hold her when the world grew sharp. When sleep finally claimed him, it did so gently, as if it too understood the importance of that moment.
Morning arrived quietly. Sunlight slipped through the curtains, revealing a stillness that felt sacred. He woke first, afraid to move, afraid that waking her would break whatever fragile peace had formed. When she stirred, it was slow and confused, her body reacting before her mind caught up. She lifted her head, looked around, and then looked at him. Her eyes widened, not in fear, but in disbelief, as if she had stepped into a dream she was afraid would vanish if she blinked. What happened next was not planned or rehearsed. It was raw, unfiltered truth escaping before logic could intervene. In her confusion and relief, she reached for him and called him her husband, the words slipping out as naturally as breath. It was not flirtation or manipulation. It was a reflection of what safety felt like to her, of what she had needed for so long and had finally found, even if only for a night. The word hit him harder than any accusation ever could. It echoed through his chest, stirring memories he had locked away. He did not correct her immediately. He could not. Instead, he sat there, stunned, as emotion rushed through him like a flood breaking a dam. When reality settled, she realized what she had said and pulled back, embarrassed, apologetic, ready to retreat into the familiar armor of self-blame. He stopped her, not with words, but with presence. He made breakfast. He asked if she was safe. He told her she could stay as long as she needed. The days that followed were delicate. They navigated shared space with care, learning each other's rhythms, respecting boundaries even as they grew closer. She began to sleep through the night. He began to laugh more easily. Old wounds surfaced, but instead of bleeding, they slowly started to heal. He learned about her past in fragments, enough to understand why trust had been dangerous for her. She learned about his loss, about the love he had buried with it, believing it could never exist again. The real challenge came not from outside forces, but from within. He struggled with guilt, wondering if he was replacing something sacred, if allowing himself to care was a betrayal of what he had lost. She struggled with fear, convinced that stability was temporary, that one mistake would send her back into the dark. They stumbled, retreated, and tried again. Growth was not linear, and healing rarely followed a straight path. One evening, months later, she stood at the same window where rain had once painted fear across the glass. This time, the sky was clear. She turned to him with a calm certainty he had never seen before. She told him, not with desperation, but with gratitude, that he had shown her what safety looked like, what respect felt like, what love could be when it was patient and kind. She said that word again, not out of confusion, but out of choice. This time, it did not scare him. It felt earned. Life did not become perfect. It became real. They built something honest, something rooted in shared pain and shared hope. He learned that love did not erase loss. It honored it by continuing forward. She learned that being held did not mean being owned. It meant being valued. Together, they proved that families are not always born from tradition, but often from moments of unexpected grace. If this story has started to move something inside you, if it reminds you of your own struggles or hopes, take a moment near the end of this video to like it, share it, and subscribe, because your support allows stories of healing and humanity to reach hearts that need them most. Special request before the ending. Please comment the word hope if this story reminded you that even broken beginnings can lead to beautiful futures. In the end, what stayed with him was not the word she had spoken that morning, but the truth behind it. She had seen him not as a man defined by his past, but as someone capable of being home. And for the first time in years, he believed it too.